It would seem to me that the anonymisation, that is the only route that we get to data, doesn't help us if someone has made an application for asylum in another European Union country. We won't necessarily know that information alongside the name of the person. So that when people arrive here, of course, we just don't know. Are we able to get that sort of information from either through Europol, through which you have some agreement, but not embedment in this country, which perhaps is a shame, that we can't find out the information which needs us to protect both those who are coming either the en route or those who are coming illegally. And my second question about the en route is about the criteria for applying. In your letter to us, you said we should read, and there was a link under paragraph 8 of your letter to us, dated the 24th of November. I read, I think it was 83 pages of the link that you kindly provided. I couldn't see anywhere any definition of what would you be looking for in someone who was coming here. Now, my understanding from talking to third-party organisations who have been invited into the embassy in Paris to discuss this matter is that roughly there are something like 3 countries that you are prioritising, but no one can work out why there are no other indications of what sort of people you're looking for to grant the in status to. The question is very simply, why have we not indicated that? Why have we not said to people, we're looking for this category of people, because that would help them make the application. Because one of the problems, it seems to me, is if you provide no criteria, the people who are thinking about it might say, well, am I likely to be successful or not? What are the reasons for being successful? I have no idea.
I would question whether those who enter into small boats make that calculation either, though. Like the part of the, there's been a question about whether this is a neutral scheme, which I'm sure we'll have the chance to probe at some point. The part of the point is around dissuading someone from making the dangerous channel journey and trying to break that model. On the security point and on the point of previous applications, so with regards to security, we have, what we have at the border at the moment, which is the ability to obviously get people's biometrics, to then test them against databases that we do have access to, some of which include European databases. We don't have access through Eurodac to whether or not individuals have tried in a different country. And that, I have to say, is out with this scheme. Now, it would not be, it would not surprise colleagues to know to any degree that we would want the maximum information, whenever we can. And those are conversations we have with European counterparts, but ones I would say won't be resolved through this treaty or bilaterally, just with France. And then, sorry, a really important point about I mean, this is still, we're in the relatively early stages of a pilot scheme. We do have the flexibilities down the line to be more prescriptive about, perhaps who we're looking for. The reality is people who have eligible claims or feel they have eligible claims for sanctuary are in scope of this agreement. It was never designed to be, and particularly we prioritise this part or region of the world. So I'm not sure that would necessarily advance it to do so. Ultimately, those individuals, as everyone in the system will be, must have their case heard on the individual merits of their own individual claim.
Lord Whiting, please, I would like you to ask your question.
You described this scheme as a pilot. It's certainly innovative and groundbreaking. It achieves something that no previous administration, and certainly not the Conservative administration, ever managed to achieve. Is that fair?
Yes, reasonable to say.
And as that's fair, are we looking to see if we can extend this pilot to include other EU nations?
Yes, I mean, I would want to say to the committee that it would be my hope, and it would be, as I say, this where we are today, which is proving the concept, is not the summit of my ambition. We would like to do more through this scheme, and we would like to do this type of activity with more countries.
And so, presumably, we welcome the attendance of EU observers because it demonstrates that this scheme is, in fact, working very well.
We want to show whether it's domestic audiences or international audiences, that this can be done, and I think we've shown that.
The agreement provides for the possibility of both temporary suspension and early termination. What was the reason for including the suspension clause?
Well, it's not. I don't think it's without precedent that certainly for something as novel as this, parties might want the ability to put a brake on it if it wasn't operating as kind of agreed. So that was the purpose there, and that kind of safeguard. I think it's safe to say that we haven't had conversations of that nature because the scheme is working as we'd expect it to.
And indeed, you have every hope that it will be extended in due course.
That again would be my ambition. The date that's in the treaty is not an offhand date. Committee members will know that aligns with very important work that the European Union's doing around migration and asylum. So again, all member states are going to want to make sure that any bilateral agreements they're party to are, compatible with that. But I would hope that we could continue it.
On that very point, Lord Howell was going to ask a question, which I'd like to do now.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, my understanding is the agreement will terminate on the 11th of June 2026, on the exact. And that's just the time when the new EU Pact, presumably, is expected and will come into application. That's the new EU Pact for migration and asylum. What happens then? Do you expect the agreement to go on or to be modified in ways that it may be expected or amended? Or how will the arrangements be affected by the EU Pact? How do these two things fit together?
Well, I mean, we're now in a very important 6 months in that regard, in that, the date is on the face of the treaty. There is provision under Article 22 of the treaty that by written agreement the parties can extend it. So that, provision exists. We are at a really important point with our engagement, our relationships with the government of France, because the Sandhurst Agreement is coming to its end. So we are currently having those conversations and reaching agreements, or in the process of trying to reach agreements together at the moment. I can't run ahead and kind of have those negotiations through the committee, but as I've said to the committee, this is an important tool in our armoury, and I would want to see it continue and develop.
Thank you very much.
Could I just ask an additional point on that? Have you had any indication either from the French government or from the Commission that either a change in the French government, which could take place this week if they don't get their budget through, or a change in the pact is likely to put at risk the renewal, the extension next June?
Well, I would say certainly on the point of the government of France that there have been multiple interior ministers during this phase. So, whilst there's been changes, this has carried on and the work is carried on. So I hope that gives a degree of confidence. It's our position that we can find bilateral agreements that fit with France's multilateral commitments. So I don't think I can go further ahead of that given the conversations that are taking place. But, my view and the government's view is as said that we would like this to continue and to develop.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Lord German.
You've said that you don't think that any amendments to this agreement, or indeed extensions to it, will require scrutiny under CRAG. Why do you think that?
Well, the purpose of extension is provided for in the treaty, so it wouldn't be a development or change to the treaty as agreed, would be our view as the government. With regard to amendment, I have to say, it is not our current purpose or position that the treaty needs amendment, in the sense of it works. For what we're seeking to do, it works. Now, were that to change down the line, we would have to take full legal advice to see whether we had or hadn't engaged CRAG, but it's hard to know about that because that's a hypothetical and down the road. But as I say, the treaty as is, we believe works. We would just like to continue it.
Well, it could be amended by the French, of course.
There's a possibility. Obviously, it would have to be by mutual agreement amended. But in those circumstances, we'd obviously take the relevant legal advice and act always in compliance with the law.
Well, that's one thing, but you said to us before, and we were pleased to hear it, that the government takes the scrutiny by Parliament very seriously. So presumably, if there was a change by reason of an amendment, you'd want Parliament to be able to scrutinise that too.
Well, we absolutely would. The specific question would be as to whether that would have re-engaged Cragg. I think what I'm saying to the committee is that I don't know without knowing what that change was. And we'd have to revert in its normal order, but I would know that at every opportunity, parliamentarians would have the chance to scrutinise agreements and their operation.
Lord Boateng wants to come in on this line.
You will presumably keep us informed as the agreement is rolled out and as any new developments emerge.
Absolutely. It is really important, given how challenging public confidence is on this issue, that we are as candid and as transparent in as timely a manner as possible.
Minister, you said once or twice actually during the course of your evidence that you were expecting to say something about the neutrality of the scheme. Please tell us what you have in mind by that.
Because I slightly bristled at Lord Marland's characterisation of the scheme as a neutral one because, of course, in a numerical sense, it is a neutral scheme. It is designed to be in balance. It is not neutral in its impact because it is designed to say to people, do not get into dangerous craft. It will not get you what you want. And that isn't a neutral act. That is an active, partial act designed to change the way in which people act and to break the business model of organised criminals. So that I didn't want to miss that point at its right moment.
I
appreciate that.
Baroness Lawler, you want to say something?
May I ask, since the agreement has come into operation, have the number of small boat crossings by person head count gone down or stayed the same or gone up on the same period last year?
We are up on last year. We're down from the peak, but up on last year, yes.
So it hasn't made any difference. In fact, the numbers coming in by small boats have increased on the same period.
Well, Baroness Law, you would know that it is a multifactorial issue. The idea that one thing either is or isn't effective, but, we want the numbers to come down. Our theory of change as a government is that requires action in terms of tackling and dismantling organised crime, in breaking the model for the gangs in northern France, but all the way back through the flow of people. But then crucially, as we've made such significant policy commitments that we've made in recent weeks, to change demand as well. So it's no one thing. I accept the challenge. Those are conversations, obviously, that we have down our end, and indeed I have with the public, and people need to see that change to believe in our approach. But it's no one thing. It's all of those things.
Final question. Final question, Lord Jermyn, please.
I ask you whether the pressure in this one in, one out is to find more people from on the inside. In other words, is it difficult to get the numbers of applicants scaled up so that you can transfer others back to France?
I think there may well be something in that, in the sense of course it is easier for people who come via small boats and are canalised through Manston. They're there. We have those people, and that is a cohort of people that, for many of whom, will be eligible for this scheme in relatively short order. What we've set up on the other side is new and novel. There is going to be an extent to which people are still seeing it to believe it, as to whether it's how it operates, whether it is in their best interest to do it. So that is different. There is no doubt that is different. But I think that over time will weave itself out by the ordinary application of the scheme, showing that it does work. And is obviously.
I said last question, but Lord Boateng has been charming me with a request, so I'm going to allow it. We've got a bit more time than we thought.
We've listened to your answers with great care about the multifaceted nature of this problem. Should the committee be concerned, indeed should you be concerned, that the number of asylum decision makers has in fact fallen in the past year? Do you have any plans to increase that number? Because frankly, isn't it a big pull into this country, the fact that someone crossing one of those boats knows that it'll be a long time before their asylum application is actually handled, and it'll be even longer now we've got less people actually making the decisions?
I believe, and this is the view of the Home Office and the government, that we are sufficiently resourced in our decision makers to have an effective system. Our challenge is not in initial application decisions, is my view. That was our problem when we became the government, because the original sin with regards to hotels particularly was the suspension of decision making earlier in the decade, and that created a huge backlog. and we have been moving that at pace, we now have an accordant backlog in the appeals system because that moves through.
Are you increasing the number of people making decisions in the appeals system?
Well, we're making sure our processes are effective as possible. For headcount, I might need to turn to Dan in that regard. But
are you?
So the appeal system is a matter actually for the Ministry of Justice, and it goes through the first tier tribunal. So it's a judicial capacity issue on the first tier tribunal. We obviously do discuss and work very closely with the Ministry of Justice, and the government set out its reforms in the asylum.
Forgive me, Director General, it's one government as far as we're concerned.
Yes, yeah. But obviously judicial recruitment is a matter that we discuss with the Ministry of Justice. We have worked with them to increase the capacity at the first tier tribunal as part of one government working through that. And as I said, the government set out its reforms in terms of the asylum policy statement, in terms of a new approach to asylum appeals that it will be bringing forward.
Well, can you speak to them and write to us about progress in this area? Because it seems to us that if this agreement is actually to bite, and we want it to bite, that you are going to need to increase the number and the effectiveness and rapidity of decisions on appeal.
Can you do that?
Well, that's exactly the purpose of what we set out in the asylum policy statement, that the appeal system at the moment is rather circuitous. It means that individuals aren't always stating their fullest claim early and they go round the system, and as a result, waits are significant. The average wait, I think, is 54 weeks. So having a single appeals body that helps people get to, a streamlined appeals body, get to that single statement of case will be a much more effective way of getting decisions made accurately and at their earliest stage. So that's part of our case of change for that reform, that these things are not always as simple as more headcount.
I'm sure that everyone, including those who've been ministers, as Lord Butting has, realise that things are not as simple as sometimes we'd like them to be. But I think the point that's being made is this. The public expects, and this committee in a sense expects, the government to deal with the issues, in the way that it chooses to do it. And we obviously don't want to know when we speak to one department, oh well, it's another department's issue and we can't deal with it. So the question really is, can we, having spoken to colleagues in other departments, whichever it may be, can we get a report from you really as to what is happening in relation to the dealing with the asylum applications? And the officers and staff to deal with it. That, I think, is the question, Lord Butting, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
And if that could be done, we'd be very grateful.